The triple whammy hit me 3 years ago. For one thing, speaking engagements, my primary source of income, had dropped by about 20%. For another, my financial investments tanked. And last but certainly not least in the Sanborn triad of trials, doctors diagnosed me with prostate cancer. Strike one, strike two, strike three, right? Well, not quite. It certainly wasn't a home run year, but then again, I know people who have faced much worse. Besides, it was only half an inning in the long game of life. And to my surprise, that year of setbacks ended up leading me to a huge positive: fresh insights. Like most insights, mine had been developing in the crucible of time, not just days, but months or even years before. I have no idea how long they had been percolating in my heart and mind, but I do know they came together with great clarity while I lay in bed for 8 days that December convalescing from prostate surgery. I wouldn't know until the end of those 8 days that the surgery had stopped the spread of the cancer, so contemplative thoughts about life's uncertainties filled my downtime. I read books, newspapers, and magazines until my vision blurred, and then I turned to the television. The programming, like the reading material, greeted me with reports of the global economic meltdown and worsening recession, as if I needed reminders that my business and investments were down. Things were tough globally, too. It didn't seem to matter much where you lived on the planet. Everyone was affected by the financial crisis. I pulled out of the stock market just about the time it hit the bottom and started back up. Many experts, including the really smart one who advised me at the time, felt the market would retest the bottom, providing a soon-to-come perfect opportunity to get back in. It didn't. My business portfolio wasn't doing much better. As an author and professional speaker, I earn a large part of my income from speaking at meetings. Several high-profile corporations were getting hammered in the media, and even by Congress, for excessive spending on their events, so the meetings industry, that is, the opportunity to practice my livelihood, was nearly as depressed as the stock market. I've had downturns in business. I've had downturns in finances, and I've had downturns in health. But until that year, I had never felt the distress of all three at the same time. As odd as it might sound, however, nothing going on at that time, nothing I was reading or watching, nothing that had happened in my personal life, and nothing the doctors might tell me in the forthcoming days could shake my feeling that I was still blessed. Why? Well, for starters, as simple as it sounds, I was overwhelmed by reminders of the importance of faith, family, and friends. These aren't the desserts that follow the big meal of success. These are success, at least as I have come to define it. I don't know of a universally shared definition of success, but I do know it's always about more than material wealth. I've had the opportunity to develop a diverse range of friendships, from salt-of-the-earth people of simple means to millionaires and billionaires. I can count on one hand those who define success singularly or even primarily as net worth. When pressed for more than a superficial answer, most people I've asked define success as the quality of their lives. That includes things like health, meaningful work, relationships, service, leisure, learning, and faith. These things all blend together to create that thing we call success. The other reason I still felt a sense of prosperity was that I knew my challenges, as tough as they seemed, were met head-on by strategies I'd practiced throughout my adult life. In other words, while my lot in life wasn't as good as it had been, there were several identifiable reasons why it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I realized that almost everything knocking me down at the time came from forces outside my control, but there were several things I had been doing for years that mitigated the negative effects. My bookings for meetings were down, but not nearly as much as they were for other speakers. I knew of some whose bookings were off 70%. I believe years of hard work developing a reputation for delivering value, in every sense of the word, provided the sure footing that kept me from sliding any further backward. And while my investments had taken a significant hit, I was nowhere near the poorhouse. I grew up on a farm in Ohio, and my father's frugality bordered on obsessive. His father had lived through the Great Depression, and my dad drilled into me the most important and perhaps least complex financial planning tool there is: spend less than you make. So while I'd seen a dramatic drop in the value of my investments, I still had reserves. Lying in bed in the days following my surgery, my physical prognosis still hung in the balance, but I knew I had done several things to speed my recovery. As an overweight kid who didn't like getting picked on, I had turned to exercise. I had worked out my entire adult life, and while I never reached competitive levels in athletics, I did develop an active lifestyle. I'm sure that aided my recovery. 8 days after my surgery, I was back on my exercise bike, with my surgeon's blessing. No matter who you are, at some point circumstances will come that are outside your control. But there are things you can do to help you succeed even in challenging times. These, in fact, are the things you and I should do whether times are up, down, or sideways. And that's what this book is about. How to maximize the upsides, mitigate the downsides, and succeed as much as you can all the time.